Hey!
Okay. Okay, let's go.
Hello and welcome back to my Let's Play of Persona 5 New Game Plus. It is the 18th of April and it is time for us to have the game open up a lot for us now. The game is really going to, in terms of the amount of freedom that we're going to get, it's going to explode into a huge amount of freedom. And that's going to be really good, but it's also going to mean that we're going to have some interesting decisions to make as we go on with regards to what we do and that sort of stuff. As I understand it, this is, I've mentioned it before, but this is my first Persona game, but as I understand it, a lot of them are going to be this balance between upgrading what they call your social stats, which are, you know, the 5 stats that you've seen before, of guts, knowledge, proficiency, charm, and the other kindness. There we go. Guts, knowledge, proficiency, charm, kindness. And then also sort of talking to your confidants, so talking to the other people around within the game world and enhancing your relationships with them up to a point where you'll get bonuses to do with those relationships. And we're going to, in fact, trigger one of those confidant ranks today with one of the characters that we've seen previously in the game, but we've never really fully spoken to. So this this period of time extends all the way up to pretty much the day of that we're meant to be expelled, which I believe is like the 2nd of May. And so we have this pretty wide period of time, about 2 weeks, to sort of really mess around with the game systems, see what we want to do, and we have a really large amount of freedom within that to, you know, to really see every part of the game and that sort of stuff. So one thing I want to mention is about the school. So the school works, so you notice that we have all of these sort of mini conversations and things like that you can overhear. A lot of these sort of things are, they themselves also work along the same sort of schedule as the rest of the game, in the sense that for this period of time between now and between sort of the date of expulsion, all of these conversations are likely to be the same. There's not going to be much variation in that. And then once this particular cycle with Kamoshida and the threat of expulsion, once that is dealt with, we'll enter a new cycle of different conversations to overhear during the school and things like that. And they'll largely relate to small things that are going on within the game world, and so it's always useful for us to listen in to those conversations. Because I didn't want to stack the front half of this episode just with me listening to loads of conversations around the school, what instead I decided to do was to break that up into multiple different things across the next few episodes. So over the course of the next few episodes, I'm going to be spending a little bit at the start just hearing in on to the different conversations in the different floors and regions of the school. So I'm now here in the library, and the library is a really useful section because it gives us access to books.
What is it?
And in one of the more recent episodes, we found out that we could occasionally get a seat on the train into school, and whenever you get that opportunity, you can then read. And this is a really useful thing because reading books is one of the best ways to upgrade your social stats. Because it's, especially in, when you're reading on the train, it's a completely free action. You don't need to, it doesn't cost any time. And what we'll see throughout this game is that actions that allow you to upgrade your social skills that don't cost any time are exceptionally valuable. And we'll talk about a few of those over the course of this playthrough, especially during these early sections where we're really sort of thinking about these sort of things. Obviously, I don't need to boost my social skills at all, but that's going to free up a huge amount of time for me in order to do a lot of the other stuff that that the game has to offer in terms of confidant links and other activities around the city. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to not showcase those activities, which are just primarily for increasing your social stats. I will be doing that. That will just come sort of in little clumps in specific episodes that I sort of just need to make the decision as to which episodes those are going to be, at a later date. Okay, so there is a shop here in Yonganjaya, which is incredibly useful. Here we can buy an old TV, which opens up a nice little variety of different things. Later on, we'll be able to buy a video game console, which allows us to play games, but also we can now rent and watch DVDs in our room, and we can also, rather than needing to go downstairs to look at this TV in the diner, we can also just look at the TV in our room, which sort of gives us a little bit of flexibility there. We also have the supermarket here in Yonganjaya. The supermarket gives you discounts every Saturday and Sunday, I believe, which is really nice. A lot of the items there are pretty expensive for this early on in the game if I wasn't playing New Game Plus, so I'm not going to do a huge amount of buying things around, but interestingly, what it does show is it shows sort of this idea of items that are only available on certain days or in certain times of the year. So particularly there's an item which you can only buy in spring, so you can only buy through the early parts of the game. And then there are later items that can only be bought in summer and in autumn and in winter. So we're going to, I'll bring your attention to those, but they're also usually very well signposted throughout the game by various people who talk about these sort of things at different parts. So now down here in the underground mall, and the reason that we're here is because I found a pretty good way of me being able to use a lot of the ridiculous amounts of money that I currently have, and that is by buying both some of the expensive accessories that are around here, but also by buying gifts. And gifts are a really interesting part of the game that aren't really stressed an awful lot about. The idea is that there are certain items that you can buy that come up as that are primarily only as gifts, and you can see which ones they are because they have these little sort of present icons. They've got a gold icon which is a little present next to them. And so there is always a character. So later on, the idea of the gifts is that if you, for example, are interacting with a confidant and you can't yet increase their rank from, let's say, rank 1 to rank 2 or whatever, then what you could do is when you see them, you will not undergo a rank event, but instead you'll be able to take them somewhere So visit a location on the map, and when you do that, you could potentially then give them a gift. And if you do give them a gift in particular that fits their interests, so it's all about knowing the people, which I always think is a further nice little nod to how important the relationships that you develop during the game, why they're so important. So within those gifts, that will cause that particular person to have to increase their affection towards you, and so the next time that you meet them, you're far more likely to get that ranked up event. Now the gifts, the important thing for me, at least at this point, is that the gifts, one, is that they're pretty expensive, which means I get to go through a large amount of this money that I have, but also they do not stack, and they do not carry over to the next playthrough. So you pretty much buy one, and
have you made your decision?
And that's it. And seeing as later on in the game money should not be a problem, there are ways of earning very large amounts of money in this game pretty quickly. And so because that is the case, I feel like a good way of me limiting my spending at this point is to obviously do this, is to buy these gifts now, in the knowledge that I would have definitely had enough money to buy those gifts later on in the playthrough when I actually need to use them, which is going to be, multiple, potentially even months' time, if we're really thinking about it at this point. Okay, so we've done a bit of shopping. Some of the other things that we want to be thinking about, I buy some bio-nutrients from the plant shop, and that's also quite important, but that we'll talk about when it comes to it. I'm buying some materials here, so certain shops allow you to buy specific materials. They're indicated by these little silver icons. And the silver materials are used in crafting, and crafting is a really important part of the game. And at this point, obviously we've learned how to craft in the last episode when Morgana taught us how to make a lockpick. Lockpicks take silk yarn and tin clasps. We're going to want a decent number of lockpicks, at least certainly for the start of the game. The first 3 palaces that we enter all have multiple chests that we need to unlock, and so we do want lots of lockpicks for those situations, and so it's really useful for me to buy the items now, just so I know that I have those items in order for crafting. The other main thing that we're going to be doing at this point, or that's really useful, is for us to cycle through, so a lot of the shops and stuff restock every week, and what we want to do is we want to stock up on healing items, which obviously I bought a load of in the last episode, but beyond healing items, also a good thing for us to buy is SP replenishing items. And these are really rare. There are not a lot of SP replenishing items in the game. At least certainly not much that you can just freely buy from stores and stuff like that. So as I buy some rather expensive accessories, you'll notice in the previous thing I bought some SP replenishing drinks from the vending machine in Yongdonjaya just outside, just by the bathhouse. That vending machine is really, really good because those SP replenishing drinks are really cheap. Now it's only replenishing 5 SP per drink, but that's still quite useful. Another location which we can get SP replenishing drinks is outside, is in the courtyard in the school, and another one is the vending machine inside the arcade, which I don't think we do in this particular episode, and we can do that later. Pretty much at this point I'm not planning on entering the palace for a little while yet, and instead we're just going to do a bit more exploring as to what's sort of available to us at the moment. And that leads us to the clinic, which is where we're going to meet Takemi and start her confidant link. So I will see you once we've gone through that whole process.
Oh. Huh? What are you trying to do? Huh? Take care. Did you change your mind? Good evening. Do you remember anything from the moment you took the medicine until now? By the look in your eyes, I'd say you don't. You briefly woke from your coma, but you were completely dazed during the examination. You eventually lost consciousness and fell back asleep. Are you out of your mind? Only an idiot would have drank that. Fine. By the way, the reason you lost consciousness was because of the taste. It produces a foul smell when it mixes with gastric juices, similar to surströmming. Oh well. All that matters is that thanks to you, I was able to get some good data. Okay, it's my turn to make good on my part of the deal. That's why I waited until you woke up. I don't want the general public to know about my original medicines. So you're strictly prohibited from disclosing what happens here to anyone. Understood? Then it's a deal. As long as you come here for it, I'll give you the medicine at a good price whenever you want. I may even add additional selections in time. I look forward to your continued patronage.
Considering all the actions you've taken, you must have had someone with medical expertise. Who? And how did you treat your wounds? It'll be easy to find out who if we look into this, you know.
I am thou. Thou art I. Thou hast acquired a new vow. It shall become the wings of rebellion that breaketh thy chains of captivity. With the birth of the death persona, I have obtained the winds of blessing that shall lead to freedom and new power.
All right.
So, when can you come back for the next clinical trial? Oh, you don't remember that part either? Well, I was saying that teenage test subjects are quite valuable in the medical research industry. So I'll provide you the medicine for your entrance exams, and in exchange, you'll be my guinea pig. I have to perfect this medicine. If you're able to move now, you can go home. All right. Take care. Bye.
All right.
Hey.
Hello, and we are back. And so after initiating our Death Confidant link there by talking to Takemi, something I should mention is that each of the way the Confidant interactions work is that obviously you have a bunch of different options to say, you know, a bunch of different responses to give, and those individual responses will affect the person you're interacting with to different degrees. So obviously some of these responses are a lot better for what they want than something else, and it's up to you as the player to understand what that particular character might really respect in these sort of responses. So you notice there, Takemi, she really so the reason I make those choices in that interaction with Takemi is because I know that she's not going to want me to be prying into her business, and I'm going to wait for her to open up to me should she feel the need to sort of do that. And so, as you can imagine, throughout this playthrough, I'm going to be choosing most of the right responses in order to take these confidants so that they can, move on as quickly as possible. Secondly, as you can see, we are currently filling in a crossword. These crossword puzzles are available again on specific days. There are like 30-odd dates that the crossword appears. Doing so gives you a bit of knowledge.
Nice.
And we'll talk a bit more about the little music notes and exactly what they represent in another episode. But yeah, so there are 15 unique crosswords within the game, and my aim is to cover all of them. Anyway, that is going to be it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it, and hope you'll join me on the next.